So what problems then, is Teammate and Tulsa Innovations working on now? In other words, as you look around, the autonomous market or beyond, and you're thinking cybersecurity, what would you say are some of the toughest issues that still need to be resolved? I can think of some, but I want to hear what you think.
Well, sure, and I'd love to have you give a couple of years when I get done with my list. I think the list is super long, right? Um, so, as like the grounding for the conversation, we're looking to create solutions for new problems at the intersection of autonomous mobility, energy, and cybersecurity. So what problems are new there? Well, let's start out with what you just talked about, right? The privacy problem. One of the things that people really want to do is with autonomous mobility and drones in particular is they want to be able to deliver things, do last mile delivery of things to people's homes. And
Yes.
one of the use cases that they talk about most frequently is delivery of pharmaceutical prescriptions to people's homes, right?
True, true.
And so if you think about the implications of that, um, what, so uh, first, there's probably a package with a label on it, right? And what does the label say? Does it say, 1,000 tablets of Viagra for Bob, right? What happens if you drop that in the neighbor's yard and they
Oh,
read the
good
label, right?
Lord.
Right, so a very, very exciting privacy issue. How do you label things that are delivered without the supervision of a human, right? But beyond that, the data network that carries the prescription fulfillment request and then the address of the human and the description of the payload, that doesn't the data connection itself has a bunch of private information in it, and the protection of that information becomes a very interesting problem, particularly, for example, if you've got a drone from pharmacy A operating in an air corridor that is, that's managed by company B, and, on and on and on and on. So privacy problems, the flow of private data across the networks that manage autonomous mobility systems is a very interesting question. Security as a critical component of safety is a very interesting emerging question, right? So far, except for a small number of people who like fall asleep in their Teslas or something, we mostly don't have autonomous vehicles that are completely unsupervised by people. But like if I order home delivery of a bowling ball, that's basically an 18-pound flying missile, and so I have to be careful about how I arrange not just the basic safety guardrails, but also the cybersecurity elements that make it difficult for a bad guy to hijack whatever is carrying that thing and fly it into, a car or something like that. Uh, there are issues of sharing a control plane, right? So if I have a corridor that runs down my street for drone delivery traffic, there are going to be a bunch of different companies whose devices are navigating that corridor. There probably aren't going to be a million different control planes. There's probably going to be one, sort of corridor traffic controller, and how the various constituent organizations manage access to and commands in that shared control plane is a very interesting issue. And then maybe the hardest issue is, if you look at autonomous uh, robots in a factory setting, that's a very constrained setting. Kodak has a giant robot that delivers reels of film backing material into places in their film coating plant, and they have to have that because it has to do its job in total darkness, and humans don't work well, in that environment. So this is a big robot carrying a roll of film that, that's this wide, and it's running around the floor of the factory, and it never runs over anybody because it just, whenever it sees something in its way, it stops, and people can get out of the way because it's a really constrained environment and the thing isn't moving very fast. An autonomous system, which is navigating the outdoor environment, has no idea what's going to be in that environment, and in particular has no idea whether somebody is spray painting the stop signs, right? So attacks on autonomous systems by manipulating the inputs to them, the sensory inputs to them, essentially by manipulating the data environment around them in these uncontrolled environments, are going to be a completely new class of problems that we're going to have to deal with in autonomous systems. And then, of course, there are just the issues that we've known about for maybe 40 years, but still haven't developed good math to deal with, which are the issues of emergent systems, right? So one drone flying in an airspace is one thing. 500 drones flying in the same airspace, even if they all have the same programming, is a completely different entity, and it sometimes displays behaviors that are radically unpredictable. So these are some of the sorts of problems, that we think are going to require solutions that will probably also require the creation of new companies to implement.